Hey, Cardinals fans, welcome to another episode of Birds on a Blue Note with your captains here. RJ, thanks for joining me again today, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Happy to be here. This is fun. So
Hey,
enjoyed.
I mean, when the team's rolling like this, it's fun to chat about, right?
Yeah, and there's no Libertor start, so I don't have to talk about that.
So we get a rant-free episode from RJ today.
Yeah, mostly. We'll
Well, at
see.
least on Libby. But so we're going to be recapping the recent Cincy series that we just came off of a nice series win. So both teams coming into this series were actually pretty hot, so to speak. We've won our last few series, four coming into this one. They had just come off of a sweep of the Dodgers, so they were high as well and coming home. And yeah, something had to give. It did not help that we had that very late game in Chicago the night before, and guys just felt and looked lethargic throughout the game. And obviously, no excuse, but getting in early in the morning and having to wake up a few hours later for a day game, if
Yeah,
you're
it's
at
tough, right?
80% of energy and the other guy's at 100%, you're already at a disadvantage in pro sports. I don't know
Yeah,
what
and
you
Ali said they didn't get in until 4 a.m. So I can imagine, imagine you're doing your job and you have to be up by 9 and you go to bed at 4. You probably don't feel too good the next day. And like you said, not an excuse. It's just we got to break it down, right? So that's
No,
what
yeah.
happened.
And I mean, people are like, oh, they just hop on a plane. It's like, no, they got to get into they already come packed. So like giving you some insight, guys already come packed for these road trips. They have their stuff ready to go in their locker rooms, but they still have to get out, shower, change, do all the media stuff. Then they have to load up the buses, load up the planes, get on the planes, fly in, land, get in, check in. It's this whole mess. So, like you said, they're getting in at four, and the slightest advantage that you can have over your opponent at this level it can be like a big one. But that being said, coming in, Goldy started us off in the first inning with a home run, and I don't know about you, I thought it was actually going to be a pretty good game from there, but
Yep.
that was about all the offense we mustered from there. I mean, the bats looked pretty lost. Again, no excuse, but it just looked off from anybody that's been watching the games the last few weeks. This wasn't the same team that we've had. And, they came back against Lynn. There were a few errors, obviously. I mean, what we had Goldy and Nato make an error in the same inning for the first time in like forever.
Not only the same inning, the same game for I think the first time as they've been teammates for the Cardinals. It's the first time they've had innings in the same game together, much less the same inning. Like you said, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ultimately like doomed Lynn. He got the two unearned runs there. Tough luck loss.
Still a quality start, technically.
Yeah, quality start. I mean, the only other real good thing to note besides Goldie hitting a home run, that's his third one in the last. At that time, is his third one in the last two games. Um, It's Kyle Leahy. I mean, he pitched another inning and a third scoreless.
Hmm.
This is the guy we thought was just going to be like an innings eater and like a blowout one way or the other, but he's developed into a pretty good arm. I don't know any other positive thoughts you have on that game though, aside from everyone
Roy
looking dead
Libby went
tired.
back to his bullpen role and did a good, I mean, he had a little bit of struggle with a couple walks, but I mean,
No runs.
no runs, no
Right.
runs for
That's
him.
weird, huh? Like maybe we should just be like, hey, you're a reliever the rest of this year. And if he wants to be a starter in the future, that's fine. This is something I've ranted about. So this is gonna be my small Libby rant for this video. If he wants to be a starter next year, tell him during the offseason. So he has the whole offseason to be prepared and ready and warmed up and stretched out to be a starter, right? The,
Yeah.
the whole back and forth thing, I feel like not, and it's not just Libertor. It's the same thing with Hicks last season. It's not really good for anyone's development, I feel like. And this should have been a lesson already learned, but we doing it this year again for some reason. But like you said, yeah, scoreless outing for Libby, so that's good. So hopefully that he's going to stay in the bullpen. He knows his role in the bullpen as like our second lefty specialist behind JoJo, and he'll be good. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
I mean, it's just unfortunate if it's not for those errors. Errors really seem to be biting us in the ass this year. Like anytime we give up an error, I am almost certain that that run is going to score. right
It does
now.
feel like that. Yep.
It
It's
really
the same thing
feels
in the
like
Cup
that way.
Series too. We had like 10 straight games with an errors before we finally broke it, and it seems like there's been a lot of unearned runs lately. So that's something that needs to be cleaned up. Uh,
Yeah. Only other real positive out of this game is Wynn continued his hitting streak, getting to 16 games. And this, obviously, that kept going through the series, but, just wanted to touch on that positive. Kid continues to hit those line drives and find ways to get it on base. So props to him. He's
yeah,
now,
Burley got a hit too, which at that point I think put him at 10. That eventually got broke also, but those two guys have been carrying lately a
yeah.
lot, and Gorman, but those two in particular I mean, Burley's not really a rookie anymore. He's kind of a part-time player last year, but he's one of our younger players, and it's a really good thing to see.
He's still definitely, I'd consider him part of the youth of the team for sure, like you said. Spot on. So, I mean, that wrapped it up for game one, lost 3-1. And I mean, with that, all we could hope really was that our guys were going to be able to get a good night's sleep and bounce back. And boy, did they. What what a great game to come back to after that. Had Gibby on the mound. Um, and if you didn't watch the rundown at all, he was absolutely stellar. We're gonna have highlights right now playing behind this, but I mean that guy was on throughout the game. 6 strikeouts, only allowing 1 run, 2 hits, had a couple of walks, but another quality start for Gibby on the night, and the offense showed up. He got hits throughout the lineup. Nato and Gorman are two. Nolans had home runs. Wynn had another hit to keep his hit streak going. Like the only person that didn't get a hit out of the starters was Burley. And as you mentioned, he's been carrying the team on his back. So good for him. He can have a night off to not
Yeah,
be
it
responsible for
happens, right?
anything.
I mean, particularly you want to highlight Nolan Arenado too, because it's his struggles are not something that he's unaware of. He had a pretty good interview with Jim Hayes talking about, hey man, I'm just not pulling the ball like I normally do. And that's like his thing, right? It's like he's historically his whole career pulled the ball for power, like at a very, very high clip, one of the best in baseball at it. And that's exactly what he did this game. He hit one almost 108 miles per hour to left field into the bleachers. So I mean, that's a good sign, right? So we
Yeah.
need him to get going. Goldy seems to be going a little bit. Arnado is like the only guy right now that's like still kind of struggling. Because like you mentioned, Wynn's hitting, Burleson's hitting, or Herrera had an RBI single that game. The whole top to bottom, Lars Nootbaar's been hitting. More on him later too. But aside from Carlson, Arnado's like the only guy. So you love to see
Yeah.
it. He crushed it. I mean, it was a laser into left field. Um, and yeah, Gibby obviously is another. What is that, like 11 quality starts out of like 14 or something crazy? It's just
So
he's been
he has
crazy.
gone at least 6 innings in 9 out of his 11 starts.
9 out of 11. Okay, I knew
Yeah,
there was 11 in there
which
somewhere.
leads in the league by far.
But yeah, that's exactly what we signed him for. And Mo got a lot of flack, and to his credit, yeah, he was right. I mean, I was one of those guys like, yeah, but what good are innings if he gives up a bunch of runs? But he hasn't. So that's the thing. He's lots of quality starts, and he's really saved our bullpen, especially with the issues we've had with Miles and like our fifth starter in particular this year. He's been a lifesaver for us. So I mean, him and like the offense, obviously the story of the game.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with Gibby, like just having followed him, when he isn't on, like the reason why his ERA gets so inflated is he'll have games where he still eats innings and you can just keep him in and he just takes a beating and gives up like 5 to 8 runs. And
You
then
mean
he'll have
like
other
it
games
was the
like this where
Phillies
he
against
just
the
gives up
Cardinals?
one and whatnot.
Yeah. Like his Philly start against us a few years back where he hit 4 home runs in a row. That was Kyle Gibson, if you guys forgot. So, yeah, it happens. He kept pitching. Usually you give up 3 straight bombs, you're still not the guy that's in there to give up the fourth, but that's the type of pitcher he is. So
Yep, exactly. He's a guy that he'll stay in there and he'll pitch through thick and thin, which I mean, as a number five, you love to see. I mean, he's at a 3.6 ERA as our number five.
our five.
So I mean, And he's been one of our most consistent throughout the entire season at getting innings done. So he's on pace for another 200 inning season right now at this rate. So I
And that's
mean,
rare in today's game. So it's
yeah.
yeah.
Another positive, bullpen did not need to use our closing rotation. So King was able to eat 2 solid innings of no earned run ball. Fernandez came in and those batters did not look comfortable. I mean, they were able to get off, but like, boy, did they not look comfortable. We'll show a clip here where like he gets in strike and the guy just like falls down.
Yeah. I
Like
mean,
he,
that's something I want to touch on a little bit later too. But since we're already talking about it, like
yeah,
the
go ahead.
develop, like that's an interesting development for this team, right? Is like some of these other arms we didn't really expect to be that good out of the bullpen have been good. You know, they've been pretty, for the most part, pretty consistently like reliable. King's another one. Like he pitched 2 scoreless innings for us. John King, right? Like
Yeah.
who'd have thunk? And like you said, Fernandez has been mostly, he's had a couple bad, but like he's been really good too. So like him and Leahy have been good. It's kind of crazy, and we're gonna talk about Middleton later, but it's a good development to have, especially given how often we've had to rely on our three-headed dragon at the back end of the bullpen for these other guys to step up when needed.
Yeah, that was huge. The fact that they kept this from ever getting to a save situation and getting Helsley again much more needed rest, really big, really big. And yeah, I mean, again, this is on the Reds' home turf too.
Great American
So
small.
Herrera also had to put out too.
Yeah, that's rare, right? We make fun of his arm. His arm's actually not that bad. I think it's just his release is pretty slow.
Yeah. But again, that's something he has to work on if he's going to be behind the plate at the major league level. But that's here nor there, ultimately. Really solid game all around for the team. Final with the 7-1 win, 13 total hits, and no errors. Yay!
First time I think 10 games it was no errors. So no unearned
Yeah.
runs for any of our starters this time. Like Lynn the night before got the tough luck loss, who 2 unearned runs and got the loss.
Yeah. So crazy, man. But is what it is. So moving into the rubber match that we had today. Now this was that bullpen spot start that we were all worried about Libby possibly ending up getting.
Yep.
It was announced it was going to go to Pallante, which still had many of us worried, rightfully so, especially with his whip numbers. Like the man lets people on at an excruciating rate, over 1.5 batters reach every inning on him. And for a starter role, that can be really, scary position to be put in yourself. But boy, did he make us eat any of our words of doubt and thoughts. Like, comes out with 6 innings pitched, 3 hit ball. Sure, he gave up 3 walks, so still a bit dangerous, but 4 strikeouts. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better spot start from him.
This is supposed to be a bullpen game, and he comes out and he
Yeah.
gives 6 innings of shutout ball. Like, you can't. You want nothing more than that, really. Like you were expecting 3 to 4 innings and hopefully keep the team in the game. He put us in a phenomenal position to win. So hats off to him, right? Like it's funny because this is a guy that struggled so much out of the bullpen that he gets sent down.
Hmm.
He comes back as a starter and shoves for 6 innings. Like I mentioned earlier in like one of my other chats, it's like Liberatore is supposed to be the starter and he struggles as a starter and he pitches well out of the bullpen, while Pallante is supposed to be the bullpen guy, struggles out of the bullpen, but pitches well as a starter. Like his last start that he had was the last season. He also pitched 5 or 6 shutout ball. It doesn't make any sense, but here we are.
It's just funny how some pitchers are better able to use their arsenal or need a more limited arsenal. Like a guy like Libby being able to focus on just a few pitches and throwing his hardest for an inning definitely suits him better. Whereas a guy like Pallante like clearly showed today that he can go the long game and really, mix in his whole arsenal of
Well, and to
stuff.
his credit too, I want to mention this before it leaves my brain because I have
Yes.
short-term memory loss sometimes. He did mention that he was working on a sinker while he was in AAA, and he utilized that today, and it was beautiful. He got a couple wicked strikeouts with it too. So I mean, I'm sure you'll see it in the highlights, but
Didn't he
I
even get a ground ball double play at one point off of one of
yeah,
them?
yeah, like exactly. So like he knew what he needed to work on. He was sent down, he worked on it, and he came back and he shoved. And like I
Yeah.
don't see them. He's probably going to get at least one more shot at this number 5 role, you would think, based on today's performance, because like you can't ask for any more.
Yeah, I don't know how you cannot let him have another opportunity at this after this performance, at least. You know, it would be baffling if they're just like, oh, we're going back to Libby. Or even, even
Please
at this
no.
point, as much
Can't
as
do
I'm
it.
pushing for
Can't do
Sem,
it.
even if at this point they were like, oh, we're going with Sem, it's like, wait, Pallante earned another shot at this. You got to
Absolutely.
reward good pitching like that, in my mind. This wasn't like you said, this wasn't like a 3 inning game where he got it to the bullpen. He went 6. He got us a quality start. He should be rewarded with another start for quality. It's like that extra life in Mario or any game, He earned another token in
Yeah, for
this.
sure. And like not only just the 6 no runs, and he looked really good. And this is a
Yeah.
Reds offense that had been going into this series, had been pretty hot and feeling pretty good. And they play in Cincinnati. We were in Cincinnati. The ball flies there. He wasn't even
Mhm.
giving up hard contact. So it'd be foolish not to like see what he had because like I said, he was working on stuff and he came back and he utilized that in a game against major league talent and it worked. So let's see if this is a thing. I mean, this has come from someone who was like, please start Sam or start Graceffo or try one of these young guys because you got to know what you have in him. But after watching him today, you're like, man, he looks like a viable option. And knock
Yeah.
on wood, hopefully he stays one. I don't want to jinx him too soon, but it was very impressive today.
No, I credit where credit is due to him. Like you said, he has put in the work and it has showed. You got to reward that as a manager, ultimately. And Ollie's been pushing the right buttons right now, so I have a feeling they're going to stick with that, but remains to be seen, ultimately. And it was good to see that the offense showed up for him, too. Carp bled it off in the third with a home run, his first of the season. And I know you were skeptical when we signed him,
Oh,
thought he was a
absolutely.
waste of a roster spot. I
Yeah.
didn't even think he was going to break spring training with the team because I thought he was
I
going to
told
be
you he's
awful.
gonna get
And
200 at bats. Watch.
I mean, you can't ask for any more at league minimum than we've been getting from Carp. I
Now you
mean,
can ask more
bravo to him
Crawford,
for
but
coming back and being the consummate professional he has been so far on this team. And
absolutely.
and providing the scoring right now. He's had some critical hits.
Yeah, he had
And
that big one in the Cup series that tied the game in the 8th inning. Like that was to this point, I think probably the most important and exciting game of the season. But like, yeah, you mentioned home run right away, and this his first one for the Cardinals since April 30th of 2021. So his first Cards home run in over 3 years. It's pretty cool, right? And like it's a
yeah,
good start to the game also.
and it gave that energy. You got Palante on the mound. He's cruising, but like something's got to happen. Whoever you feel like breaks the dam first might be the one that gets that game going along. And that pretty much ended up being the case. After that, Gorman got the double in the fourth inning, the drive in Goldy. And, he ended up coming in with win, officially now being the lone holder of second place for rookie hitting streak at 18 games. He is still trailing our good buddy Joe
Yep, he's
by
at
a few
25.
games,
Yep.
25 to hit. But I mean, he's now solely in second place ahead of Albert Pujols.
And his buddy Jordan Walker, who had that hit streak last year also. So we'll touch
Crazy.
on him more later also. So stay tuned.
It's just a stay tuned show. But yeah,
Yep.
overall, it wasn't as much like the team getting hits. It was a little bit more like spotty. Donnie had three, Noot had two, Gorman had two, Wynn had three. So a lot of, people not really contributing too much, but we got the win ultimately. And Helsley comes in, gives up a run. I know you're going to go into that a little more, but you know, bullpen was a bit more shoddy. King came in, got his guys done. Kit had a little bit of a hiccup, but again, we came away with the win. Cracks can happen as long as we don't break,
Yeah, bend
in
but
my
don't break.
mind.
Right? We didn't even mention that Gorman hit another home run, and Chip Carey had one of the better calls of his Cardinals career. He said, "Oh, he missed it," and it just kept carrying all the way out. Like, oh, it's a home run. Okay, cool. I guess we'll take that.
Yeah.
But yeah, 12 and like series win, big series win, fifth straight series win, 12-3 in our last 15 games. I mean, we were talking about this stretch of games before it started. It's like the most important stretch of the season. And you're like, oh, man, I hope we win 7 or 8. Like, what's happening?
We were definitely prepping for the absolute worst over this stretch,
You're
and
prepping to be a seller. So
we knew that this was going to tell us the team that we had, and they're just giving us hope now, is the thing. So
yeah, just don't break my heart now. You got me all built up and ready to roll.
yeah, and the nice thing is it's going to be heating up too, and the ball's going to start to carry at Bush and
No more
everything.
humidor.
So I mean, it's good to see. I know you wanted to dive into some of the offensive numbers as well, and as well as Helsley. I mean, which one do you want to kick it off with first?
Uh, let's start with a positive and then go with a little bit negative. Because there's another negative I kind of want to throw in there too, which is not really numbers related. But yeah, we're 500, so that's a positive, right? We're back to 500 finally. First time we've been 500 since we were 9-9, super early in the season. But yeah, we talked about Gorman win. Gorman in his last 10 games, he's hit 5 home runs. Like the powers, we knew the power was there. I mean, we knew he was capable. It's just could he make enough contact? And lately he has been. His on base percentage in that time is almost 400. He's slugging nearly 800 in that time span. He's got a 250 WRC plus, like incredible. Like he's picked up the power where like Arenado was struggling with it. When, like we mentioned, when he's on that 18 game hit streak, but he's playing himself into being like an all-star game player, maybe a starter if he continues this going. He's hitting over 350 in his last 10, slugging nearly 600, 200 WRC plus, getting on base almost a 400 clip, and they've been putting him in leadoff like sometimes too. So and he's still hitting. You know,
Mhm.
sometimes like baseball players are creatures of habit. Sometimes you move them spot in the lineup and they start to struggle, but like Wynn has just kept on rolling. Goldie hit 3 home runs in his last 4 games, so that's good to see. We talked about the Arenado home run the other day. He crushed it 107 off the bat. You're hoping that's a sign of things to come because he's a Deadpool hitter, and that's exactly what he did. Burley, we talked about over 300 in his last and really been carrying the offense with some key clutch hits too when needed. And then the last guy I want to talk about, and we didn't really touch on it during the end game, but Noot he's hit over 300 since he's been back too. Slugging really well, WRC plus almost 200, but he actually got pulled from the game today. So game 3 said he felt a strain in his side. We don't really have any updates on that yet. I've been refreshing the Twitter bot, like seeing like if John Denton or Katie Wu or someone will tell us what's going on with Noot. So hopefully it's nothing serious. But he's been a big catalyst of this offense lately as well. So hopefully he doesn't go on the IL. But I did want to bring up worst case scenario he does. Is it time to recall Jordan Walker if that happens? I think it's a good question. I'll leave that into you.
It depends on how long they think he's going to be gone for, but I mean, you'd have to imagine he's going to be called up if somebody goes down in the outfield at this time. I mean, I don't see who else they would call up right now, per se, for that like type of role, for an
I
outfield
mean,
role.
unless they really believe in Carlson, who is continuing to struggle. I mean, he's been really the only negative hitter on our team. Um, and it sucks because this is the guy that's the former #1 prospect for us also. So like you would like to believe in a guy who's at once shown the potential to be something, but every opportunity he gets, he doesn't really do anything with it. So it's tough. And like Walker still does not have any home runs in AAA. For the people who are like, oh, but he hasn't hit a home run. It's like, yeah, but he's crushing the ball. He's hitting everything like 100 plus miles per hour. And while he was up here, we had Blake on a couple weeks ago, and we went over some cool Statcast data with Jordan Walker on him. I mean, he has the eighth fastest bat speed, or he had the eighth fastest bat speed in MLB when he was up here. So when he makes contact, he hits it really hard. And I feel like at this point in time, there's not really anything else he can learn from being in AAA. It's more or less just adjusting to major league pitching because he has the skills. He's just going to need to have to figure it out here. And we know he can. He's shown it last year. We were talking about the 18 game or 17 game hit streak he had last season. So he's capable. He's still only 22. And like, if the option is him or Carlson, you're going to take the guy with the more upside, right? So I
Yeah.
think worst case scenario, we don't even know yet because we're still waiting. Noot goes in the IL. I think it's time to recall Jordan Walker because there's nothing he could do. He's been hitting the crap out of ball at AAA. He's been I'll post another one that he was just the player of the game. He's hitting doubles all over the place. He's smoking the ball 110 off the bat. Like, who cares if he doesn't hit the home runs? He's hitting, right? So like
Yeah.
that's more than you can say for Carlson right now, at least. So that was another RJ rant that I wasn't expecting off the top of my head. But yeah, we also wanted to talk about Helsley a little bit. He's given up an earned run in three straight now. He's definitely got a little bit of Izzy in him right now. If you're an
Yeah.
old Cards fan, you remember Jason Isringhausen. Always got the job done, but made it interesting every time, right? So, um, there's a fear he might be tipping his pitches. I haven't had enough time to go over all the video evidence of that yet, because you look at his stuff, and the stuff is still there. Like today, it's the same stuff that he was pitching with when he was dominant and no one was getting on base. He's throwing 101, 102 wipeout slider today and still gave up an earned run. So you'd have to believe maybe he's tipping or maybe the teams have picked up something that's because nothing else has really changed. I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
Could also just be arm fatigue ultimately. You know, you never know with these things. These are pro hitters too. So they might just be seeing the ball well. And if you know a fastball is coming more than not, you're ready to jump on it. I mean, words out, Helsley is who he is now. He's not like some surprise. If you don't know what you're getting when you're facing Helsley, you're, you know, shit out of luck ultimately.
Yeah.
But
But that's the thing that it's like, is it fatigue though? Because he's still hitting 101, 102 on the radar. So the ball is still moving the same way and he's still hitting the same velocity. So it's just interesting to like all of a sudden be having this much trouble when you were so dominant early on.
true,
Maybe
but
it's just a blip too. So
with
like
arm fatigue, it could just be he's having to put more effort into it, and guys are noticing that before he's having to give it and
so it could
whatnot.
be kind of like tipping, kind
Yeah,
of.
it ends up resulting in like a sort of tipping. You're doing a little more than you are for your other pitches. So will be interesting to see how they work on that, obviously. But got a couple minutes before we go. Any final thoughts before we head off and take a break before the Phillies series?
One last little negative and then a little positive, I guess. The negative is Kenyon Middleton. Thinks he's getting another exam. Maybe UCL tear, sprain, maybe season ending. Hopefully not. Waiting on an update from that. Sorry, it's news. I gotta tell you.
Yep.
Also, I still got the giveaway. We are less than 20 subscribers away from giving this thing away. We are so close. So, please like, subscribe, share to your friends. On to the Phillies, right? Best
Yep.
record in baseball. So that's going to be a real test. I think we're missing Wheeler, but we're still going to hit Nolan and Suarez. So should be an interesting series.
Yep. And that's what we have in store for the weekend. So one last final test for this team before they, you know, go into June and the summer schedule per se. So we'll see you all next time. Thanks for joining us today for another recap episode. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care, everybody.